Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Tales from the Penalty Box, the first ever online version. I'm Darcy Lynch, and I'm going to be your host. We're probably going to run for about the next hour. And really the genesis behind this show and how it's came to be is a couple of years back, we did a live show called Tales from the Penalty Box in Ottawa for the Yuck Yucks comedy chain. It was supposed to be just a one-off where they asked me to come and host. My connection to the NHL guys is that I do an alumni show for TSN Radio. No hockey talent myself, but they asked me if I could enlist a couple of guys that would come and bring it with a lot of humor and a lot of stories from the game. I immediately thought of Matt Barnaby, a great friend of mine for many years, and him and I kicked off the show with Andre Waugh. Went really well, raised a lot of money for Alzheimer's research. Yuck Yucks had us back in Ottawa a couple more times for some sold-out shows. We did some then across Canada, mainly in Ontario. We were out west. We've done 3 in Buffalo. Other former NHLers have joined us, like Brad May and PJ Stock and Brian McGrattan. But Matthew Barnaby has been instrumental right from the beginning, been a big part of it. And now that he's launching his own website, he's the ideal one to kick off the first episode of Tales from the Penalty Box online. So welcome, Barney.
Thanks, buddy. Yes, some big words you used there. I'm impressed. Fuck, wow. You've been studying up in
Thesaurus comes in handy.
Nice hat, by the way. Hopefully, that the good thing about being online, we've done this show many a times in many a bars. Usually a little bit more cocktails. I'm sure you have a beer beside you. I have a protein shake here. So
I'm more on the whiskey now.
Yeah, a little whiskey. But yeah, it's usually for people out there, Darcy Lynch usually leaves that hat somewhere because he's so fucking loaded by the end of this show. So it's going to be a little different. Your wife's going to be there. Your kids are there. But looking forward to this show. It's different times. COVID-19 has put us, all at home, and it's a different way of doing things. I'm excited because we've done these shows. People always ask questions. People have always asked me to do books along the way, ask you stories. There's only so many things you can say, whether it would be on SiriusXM, whether I was on TSN or ESPN. You go as far as you can in mainstream media. Like we've said before on our shows, this is a little different. If you're not 18 years old, if you have some children in the room, you parents out there, you might want to take them outside of this forum. It's certainly going to be a lot of fun, but there's also going to be a lot of stories, a lot of language, and I don't know if it's something that you want your kids. Hey, for me, Matthew and Taylor, I'm totally fine with it, but certainly under 18, this might be a little tough.
Just to circle back quickly, the part about getting loaded, that's exaggerated. The part about the fedora getting lost, that is true. But if I lose it during these editions of Tales from the Penalty Box, at least I'm losing it at home. We should point out the Stay the Puck Home shirt, good friends of ours at Hockey Helps the Homeless, a great charity, raising important funds for an important cause. That's the reason for you wearing that tonight.
Yeah, Bar Down Hockey and Hockey Helps the Homeless. They partnered to do these shirts, these hoodies that you can go on to Bar Down Hockey and order those. 100% of the proceeds do go to the charity. Obviously, it's tough times, so we understand that money isn't at a premium right now. A lot of people have lost jobs or been laid off. Certainly, it's trying times, but if anyone wants one of these shirts, hoodies, go to Bar Down Hockey. You can order one, and they look pretty cool. Stay the puck home. A lot different than I would say it, but certainly that's why we have this venue.
So the format for the next hour or so is I'm going to throw some questions at Matt, mainly based on his NHL playing career, but also from his time with broadcasting and just watching all the NHL games that he's watched this season before the quarantine-imposed lockout. But we're going to use a lot of the questions that have came in through Twitter and through social media and anything else that we can get during the next hour or so.
Perfect.
Feel free to send them along. But again, the bulk of the questions are going to center on your playing time, Matt, and we're going to go for the uncensored stuff, the true, honest, candid stories. But just to start off, with the season being suspended right now, and it's unlikely that it's going to return, and if it does, it's going to be a different fashion and through the summer. But what's the thing that you're going to miss the most based on what you watched from the current season of what you're going to miss now that you miss with it being gone? What was the biggest highlight of this season for you so far?
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty, right? We don't know. I mean, I'm a big golfer, and they say we're going to be playing golf on May 12th. We really don't know. We turn on the TV, we get on the computers every single day, and try to find out what's next. What's the next step? Obviously, we want to stop this virus, this pandemic, as soon as we can, so we can get back to some normalcy. But we realize how big sports are in our everyday life when you are stuck at home. And I don't know if it's coming back. That's something we're going to have to wait and see from all the governments, whether it's Canada, whether it's the United States, whether it's that fucking idiot Trump that's in control, and he's going to be the one that is going to determine that. But certainly it looks like it still is going to be a while. What do I miss most? I guess the thing that I'm going to miss most if it doesn't come back is seeing Connor McDavid in the playoffs. I think Edmonton had an amazing turnaround. Absolutely love Dave Tippett as a coach. I thought it was an amazing signing by them. I had him as a coach in Dallas for 1 year, the best coach I've ever had. And he's done an amazing job with that group in just all aspects of the game. But to not see the best player in the game in the playoffs, to me, that's the time of the year that I miss the most. I miss the playoffs. I don't miss the grind, the everyday of playing in the National Hockey League as much as I loved it, as much as I loved kind of being the center of attention and being in the limelight. I don't miss the everyday of the NHL. It's a tough grind that these guys go through, but certainly it comes playoff time, weather starts turning around, that's when I miss it the most. And not having Connor McDavid maybe playing in the playoffs will be something that I'll miss.
Well, you mentioned about liking being in the limelight. For you, when you think back to the time whenever you were playing and what you brought to the game and being a villain in every opposing arena, now with the talk that realistically, if there's any chance of there being a season in the playoffs this year, but resuming, it's going to be an empty stadium. So there's a very good chance that next season, if it ever gets launched on time, that it'll be in empty buildings. What would that be like for you when you think of the trash talking on the ice and being a fan favorite in the cities you played, but probably the most hated player in the opposing arenas? What would it be like you playing with just the 6 players on the ice or on each side in an empty arena?
Yeah, I'd hate it, Darcy. I guess for the most part, my game was really playing off the emotion of the fans. And I used the fans in whatever team that I played for to kind of get me pumped up, but it also, it kept me enthused. It's a big reason why I love to play the game. I love the fans in the places that I played, but it gives you that energy to play in an empty building. Man, it would certainly feel like beer league on a lot of nights. Now, I know there's a lot that goes into it. I know the money would be crazy from the TV markets and that surrounding it. It would be certainly great, and we would all tune in. But as a player, fuck, would it be tough to go to those rinks, compete against the other team, just knowing that there's no emotion in the building. And so much of sports is played off of the fans and that emotion that you use. Not having them in the building. Again, I want to see hockey back. If there's no fans in there, I'm going to tune in. We're all going to watch. It's still going to be a really fast sport, but it's just going to miss the emotion. The emotion of playing off those fans is something that is very important to hockey and NFL and soccer and baseball. Not having it will certainly, it's going to be distracting. It's going to be totally different. We want hockey back, but like I said, it's going to be very tough to imagine it with no fans in the stands.
You played 15 years in the league, and clearly the guys who are sitting out right now at home quarantining, they miss the on-ice action, but man, they got to miss life on the road as well. In those 15 years, spent a lot of time in a lot of cities, in the 7 that you played for, and also all of the other ones on the road. Is there any specific night that stands out to you that you think, wow, when you just look back on it now, I guess it's about 12 years since you retired, but you just can't believe that happened to you?
I'll tell you who's missing the nights on the road is the married guys that have young children. That was the escape all the time, to get on the road, get some sleep, go for a nice bottle of wine. It's funny, I used to tell my ex-wife did it the best. Christine, if you're listening, enjoy this, because we'd go out and play card games, order the $100 bottle of wine and have fun with the guys. We'd be playing cards at the table, and the kids would be crying from home, and I'd be saying, deal me in, and I'd be like, yeah. How are the kids? Are they asleep? not listening to what she's saying, just looking at my cards and if I was going to have a good card and if I was going to lose, if I was going to be in the likes of Jay McKee and the Ian Morans out there that we played a lot of poker with, Patty LaFontaine. We had so many great nights on the road. So those guys that have young kids that are now been stuck at home for the last 2 months are dying for a road trip to eat well. I'm sure they're eating well. But a nice glass of wine on the road with the guys with no screaming children. Certainly they're going to miss it. Do I miss nights on the road? Yeah, we had a lot of great times. A lot of crazy nights. I always say cell phones ruined professional sports because you don't do anything like we did, whether you played in the 80s, the 90s, even before that, the way that cell phones are now. Everyone's afraid to get caught of what they might be doing, whether it's the night before, night after, of a game. But to me, one stands out the most. I wasn't playing a lot in Pittsburgh. Kevin Constantine was my coach. I fucking hated that redhead. He was a jackass of a coach and a jackass of a human being, but I wasn't playing much. I was playing like 2 or 3 minutes a night. So we had all went out in the afternoon. I was kind of the party coordinator. So set up drinks at a Gordon Biersch right near the hotel that we were at in San Jose, and one by one guys started leaving. So our lunch went from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, certain guys left. 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, certain guys left. 9 o'clock, well, I'd been drinking for 9 hours with Ian Moran and Tyler Wright, a bunch of the guys, and all of a sudden by 11 o'clock everyone was like, okay, we're going home. I was having fun. There was still some bartenders there, there was still some waitresses there, and we decided that we were going to go out. But it didn't matter. I was only playing 2 or 3 minutes a night, so I can do that in my sleep. Fuck, it's easy. I can go out, do a couple shifts, sweat a little bit, dump the puck in. That's all I was allowed to do with Kevin. Get in a fight, and there my night was over. Well, I went out hard. And when I say really hard, I got in around 3 o'clock in the morning. I got texts from my roommate, Ian Moran, don't come through the lobby. Didn't read those texts. Was bumping into pillar as I was walking through that lobby. I didn't know that the coach and GM, everyone were there. The next day I got to the rink, saw my name on the board, on the top line with Jaromir Jagr. Not the 2 to 3 minutes that I was expecting to play. Let's just say it was the hardest game that I ever had to get through. Throwing up in between periods, eating Tums from my good buddy Stevie Latin, who was our trainer in Pittsburgh. But I made it through the game. I don't know how, heartburn and all, but it was a tough one. Having thrown up all night, all day. I played about 17, 18 minutes a night that night in San Jose. I just remember after the game, Kevin Constantine coming up to me and go, whatever you did last night, you should fucking do it again. I was like, not a fucking chance. I was so hungover, so buckled, and it didn't happen for a long time.
No shortage of parties on the road in a career as long as yours, but I noticed that you put a poll on Twitter of the questions that you thought the topics that the audience would want to hear the most tonight, and I noticed that the most responses came for the best rookie party ever. Whether you want to take that with your own rookie party or some of the ones that you were a part of whenever it was on somebody else's tab on later on in your career. What's the best rookie memory party you have?
Yeah, I have a few. I was surprised. The question I get asked the most out there is, did Teddy Nolan bang Dominik Hasek's wife? I thought that was the way it was going to go, and it's astounding. No, he did not. They hated each other, John Muckler, but I get that asked everywhere I go. Did Teddy bang Dom's wife? So
that came up at every live show we've done.
Every live show, everywhere I go, and I do any Q&A, that comes up. So I'm going to tell everyone out there that's listening, he did not. He did not. For many different reasons. First, Teddy is the best guy in the world. Second of all, you don't want to go there. And third of all, rookie parties. Some great ones. I'd say every rookie party's fun. Mine was in Winnipeg. All the guys were too hungover from the Roxy in Vancouver the night before. We had ours in Winnipeg at High Steakhouse, and mine was $900 Canadian. I thought I'd won the lottery. The only reason it was so high is because the rookies like myself and Michael Pekka were doing all the drinking because we were young and we wanted to enjoy our rookie party, and made a trip down to the Palomino Club. But as for the best ones, I'd have to go to Montreal. Montreal was fun. We had it at Coutcheval. a great steakhouse downtown. Guys were loaded. We had one of our younger guys, a rookie at the time. He will remain nameless, but he might have brought a stripper as a date to the rookie party. So that was fun for the guys. For the older guys, we laughed. We were like, this cocky kid is so funny. Brings a stripper as a date to our rookie party. And let's just say there were some shenanigans. Guys were naked in closets. There were girls all over the place. Dominik Hasek actually lifting a table on the side of the balcony with people chanting Dominator on Crescent Street. I can't imagine right now, if we had cell phones and social media the way that it is now, the fucking abuse that we would have taken, that he would have taken. But I'm telling you, a great night. Another one was Miami. We shut down the Forge one night. My good buddy Richard Schmelik didn't go out very often, but he had an awesome time. To me, rookie parties are like Halloween parties. You're almost in costume, and it's guys' times to let loose, to get to know each other. An absolute bombshell there in Miami at the Forge. But the most expensive one I was ever a part of was in Arizona with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, I ran it. I don't think that the Roos Chris in Scottsdale will ever be the same. We brought in our own live entertainment into the back, closed it down, and to say that the cooks, the waitresses, the waiters, the busboys, the maitre d's were all coming back to see what was happening in the back as the girls that we had were pouring $500 bottles of wine down them as guys were enjoying it along the way. So $56,000, $8,000 a piece for rookies. There's only one guy on that whole team because it was a little extravagant. I thought $8,000 was a little too much for rookies to pay for themselves. If it went $5,000, I was totally okay. $8,000, I got on the bus the next day, asked everyone if they would chip in $500 a piece as veterans, which is unheard of. We just don't do it. But everyone was like, we had the best time, great time, golfed all day, limos, unbelievable night. Only Tommy Barrasso was the guy that said, fuck them. We are not doing it. They can pay for it themselves. They're rookies. Maybe because Jean-Sebastien Aubin was one of our goaltenders. He was a goaltender threatening him. But Tommy B, you should have put some money in there. But great rookie party in Arizona as well.
Alcohol is a big part of the partying on the road, but also gambling. You're certainly no stranger to that, and a lot of your teammates as well. But who's the biggest gambler? I know you love to gamble, but you didn't necessarily make the money that a lot of your teammates did. Who's the biggest gambler that you ever played with?
Yeah, it's funny because I was on. I do a lot of gambling. I love to gamble, whether it's sports gambling, whether it's poker and playing Texas Hold'em. We had some great games when I was in Buffalo, likes of Brad May and Jay McKee, Stumpy Thomas, Stumpy Burridge, not Randy Burridge, not Stumpy Thomas, Steve Thomas. But it's funny, we used to have some great games. We used to call it Caesar's Palace, Cheezer's Palace when we were on the road. We'd call it Stump Plaza instead of Trump Plaza because we gambled so much on the road. But we do it on the bus. We do it in hotel rooms. We do it while we were eating Patty LaFontaine. We had some great games. I saw boats being lost, lots of cash. But when I went to Pittsburgh, holy fuck, it was amped up a whole new level. The Rob Browns, Tyler Wrights, Tommy Barrasso in his pleated jeans, Jaromir Jagr, by far the biggest gambler that I ever played with. Unbelievable guy. Obviously, Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever play, one of my favorite teammates. But when he gambled, watch out. It was next level. So we had some great card games, some great times watching him pick his parlays. We always used to say, don't bet on the Pittsburgh Penguins on a Sunday because there's lots of NFL gambling going along, and it's not like it's much of a secret. I'm not blaming or putting that much out there that isn't known. I think he's top 10 of like the whales, the big fish out there that have gambled in the sporting world. And Yags is known to Caesar's Palace and many in Las Vegas as that guy. But we had some great games and some fun, some very tough times when you lose some of those games. But I also want to thank Tom Barrasso one more time. Biggest pot I ever won, about 13 grand, and 8 of it came in the form of a Patek Philippe watch. I had the bigger boat in Texas Hold'em. Thank you, Tommy. The watch served me well.
You made a couple references to Barrasso earlier, and you talked about him being cheap when coming to pay for the rookie party. But who was the cheapest NHL player you ever played with?
Yeah, Tommy wouldn't have been cheap in every sense of the word. He owned the Ferraris. One of the best lines he ever had for me, by the way, was when we were in Pittsburgh, and he had a different Ferrari, it seemed like, every day of the week. He loved his cars, loved his wine, loved everything that was high class. I didn't make the kind of money that he made at the time, certainly. But Tommy, one day I came into the rink. I go, Tommy, what kind of Ferrari is that? I had no clue. Just loved the car. And he goes, kid, if you got to fucking ask, you'll never be able to afford one. That's Tommy Barrasso for you right there. But as for the cheapest player I ever played with, no question. There's a few along the way. Guys that didn't want to go out with you because you always split the bill up. Whether you had a hot dog or a steak, a bottle of wine, didn't drink, we always just split the bill up. Whether it was 5 guys that went out, 10 guys, you always just split the bill. So guys that didn't drink wine or didn't like, were a little cheap, didn't want to go out with the guys that did drink wine or go to the nice restaurants. Vinny Prospel, awesome player, Stanley Cup champion, awesome guy, but holy fuck was he cheap. He's so cheap that he would literally drive down a hill and put his car into neutral to save on gas. That's Vinny Prospel. I love you, but fuck, were you cheap, buddy.
I know from the questions that we've got online leading into this about players people want to hear you talk about, your name will always be synonymous with 2 other Buffalo Sabres, well, 3 actually, but 2 that were teammates and that were known as friends of yours, Rob Ray and Brad May. And take it back to whenever you were breaking into the league and around the time of your first camp, because I know you and Brad played a very similar role, more similar in size, Ray being more the heavyweight, but I think Ray would have already been in the league whenever you had been breaking in, and Brad, I know, was a first rounder. So you're each all coming from a different background, as you were by no means guaranteed a spot in the NHL whenever you were breaking in. But what was it like in the early days with Mayday and Razor?
Yeah, Razor's fucking cheap too. We bought him a pair of pants in New York actually one time because we were sick of seeing him in the same outfit for the whole 7-day road trip. We'd go on a West Coast trip with Razor, and he'd bring a toothbrush and hope that his roommate would bring the toothpaste. So he'd wash his underwear at the rink in his toiletry bag. So yeah, it's not a guy. He drove a Taurus for 10 years without power windows because it was given to him for free. But breaking into the league, I remember my first night in Buffalo. I was coming in, and we had a team meal, kind of introducing ourselves to everyone that was there. And we had to stand up and say what our name was and say where we played last year and our position. Just kind of letting everyone know who we were. My nickname in junior was Killer. For some reason, I fought a lot. Don't know why it was Killer. I got beat up a lot. Should have been killed. But it was my nickname. So we went around this whole table, and guy would stand up and say, I'm whoever. I played in Regina in the Western Hockey League. Happy to be in the Buffalo Sabre training camp. I stood up and said, my name is Matthew Barnaby. Played for the Beauport Harfangs, which is a snow owl. Really, really tough. Right winger, and really excited to be a part of this whole dinner and excited to get started at training camp. All I hear out of nowhere is Rob Ray, and he goes, Killer's going to get fucking killed tomorrow. Now, I'm 165 pounds at the time. Razor's clicking in at about 230, 235. Really tough. I'm not afraid of Rob Ray. I wasn't afraid of Rob Ray then, but you're always afraid when you're going to get into a fight. And right at that moment, I knew coming into training camp that I was going to have to prove myself. I knew Rob Ray was going to be one of those guys that was going to come after me. I knew Brad May, that I had already fought in a rookie camp, and we had went at it. But I knew Rob was going to be a guy that I was going to have to fight. So as soon as we got the next day, I didn't say anything that whole night. Rob was trying to, get under my skin, trying to call everyone out, trying to call me out in front of everyone. So the next day when we got to training camp, I was on an opposite team. As soon as the puck dropped, I went right after Rob. We dropped the gloves. Rob beat me pretty good. He beat me up pretty good. We went to the penalty box, and back then, there were refs, but there weren't really refs there. So we picked up our own gloves, went to the penalty box, kind of nodded. He didn't nod back. Came out of the penalty box. I challenged Razor again. This time, I don't want to say I got the better of him, but let's say it was even. That's a win for me fighting Rob Ray. It was much, much tougher, like I said, and much bigger. So it was kind of even. I went to pick up my helmet and my gloves. Razor comes out of fucking nowhere and punches me right in the side of the head as I'm going to. Because like I said, no one's stepping in. No one's doing a thing. So we go to the penalty box again. We sit out our few minutes, and we come back out, and I chase him all the way up the ice again, and we fight for a third time in about 3 shifts. So that was my introduction to the NHL, to Rob Ray. I had already had the introduction with Brad May, fighting him, like I said, in rookie camp. But, as tough as it was, as much as he probably didn't like me coming in, certainly I grew very fond of him, respected him a lot, because, man, that fucking guy is a really tough son of a bitch, and I didn't see him lose too many fights in my 7 years playing with Rob Ray.
Buffalo was your longest stop in the NHL, and in a moment I'm going to shift from the Sabres and ask you some name association to name a word or a couple of words to come to mind whenever you think back. But sticking with Buffalo for one more moment, I mentioned earlier that it's probably 3 guys that seem to be synonymous with you that you're asked about whenever we've done these shows live in the past, and Brad May and Rob Ray are 2 of them, but the most common guy here you asked about is Dominik Hasek. A legend in Buffalo, an MVP, probably at least, I think it was 4 times when you were there. I know a couple or 2 MVPs and multiple Vezina trophies, I should say. But what was your relationship, in a nutshell, like with Dom?
I'm more impressed that you came up with the word synonymous. That's I know you can't spell it, but synonymous is big for you. Dominik Hasek. Yeah, I don't get asked about one person more than Dom. Let me first and foremost just say he is the greatest goaltender, in my opinion, of all time. And that includes Patty Waugh, Marty Brodeur, some of the greats that have played. All due respect to those guys. They were fucking awesome. But Dom was amazing. He did things that I never, ever, ever saw any other goaltender. I got to see him up close and personal for 7 years. Without him, we don't do any of the things or have success on the teams. And I don't always judge success by winning Stanley Cups. I think you have to be in the right place at the right time with the right team, get the right breaks, be healthy, all of that. But Dominik Hasek was the hardest worker. He was absolutely incredible in the way that he approached the game, and his athleticism, his commitment to being the best was second to none. Personally, I didn't like him. And that's why I think even me saying that he's the best of all time, when you don't like someone and you're still saying they're the best of all time, they probably are the best of all time. Dom, I didn't think was great to people on the outside. Very smart guy. I thought Dom was about himself. But the underlying problem in this whole thing was probably Teddy Nolan. Teddy Nolan was my coach that gave me the opportunity to take that next step in the NHL, to give me the opportunity to be an NHLer solidified, be an everyday regular guy, also a tremendous human being. Anyone that's ever met Teddy Nolan knows that he is just the salt of the earth person, the way that he treats every single person, whether you are the president of the Buffalo Sabres, whether you're Gary Bettman, or whether you're the person shining his shoes 2 hours before he's going in to coach an NHL game. Everyone's the same to Ted Nolan. So we lost Ted Nolan, or the battle went on between Dom, John Muckler, and Ted Nolan. And he essentially at that time had to pick sides. Now this went on and on. There was so much shit that went on in the dressing room with Dom, with a lot of different guys. But it came down to Teddy and him. And then in the 97 playoffs when we played the Ottawa Senators, we go back to Game 3. Dominik Hasek gets hurt. He hurts his knee. Comes skating off of the ice. Game 3, I'm jacked. I'm not even playing because I had hurt my knee, and I was supposed to be out, I believe, 6 weeks. We're at like week 4.5. And I'm dying to come back. Every player dies to come back. If someone tells you 6 weeks, you're coming back in 3 or 4 because you want to be out there with your teammates. You want to die with your teammates. Dominik Hasek goes into the medical room. I walk in after. There was a few of us there, but I was there, and I heard with my own ears the doctor say, it seems fine, it seems stable, should be okay in a couple days. I'm thinking, okay, great. We're going to have Dominik Hasek, the best player in the world at the time, our only chance of getting by the Ottawa Senators to go on in the playoffs and have our goal of winning the Stanley Cup there for us as we go through. Dom, out of nowhere, says, no. I know good. I miss at least 2 weeks. I'm like, what the fuck? Here is the best player. Doctor telling him that he's probably back in a couple days. A normal guy that wants to play is going to say, no, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. He says 2 weeks. We all know what happened after from our players. Jim Kelly saw him that night leave with Frank Musil out of the Corel Center, Ottawa's building at the time, running out of the building. Running, sprinting out of the building with a supposed torn MCL. I've had a torn MCL. You hobble. You don't sprint. And Jim Kelly, he has since passed away, one of the greatest writers I have ever seen in my life, one of the guys I respected the most and absolutely loved. We battled, but I never saw him write an article that wasn't true. He would never make something up. So Jim Kelly from the Buffalo News, God rest his soul, saw Dominik Hasek and was willing to put his criteria, his name on the line in print that Dom ran out of a rink. Dom fucking did it. He quit on the Buffalo Sabres. He quit on us. And that's why I fucking hate Dominik Hasek.
Wow. And we were talking earlier, too, about some of the big words that I'm using. I must say that was a very articulate answer on Dom, that your vocabulary and your pronunciation is a lot different in the online version when it's protein shakes than it is in the live show.
Yeah. It's
So, as I said, I'm going to move it over to some name association with some of the players you played with in other markets from Buffalo. But I'm going to throw out one question first of one of the ones that we got from social media. And I know that you have a couple as well that were sent directly to you. But one hockey fan sent in asking that he would like to know if there was any player that you played with that had a ritual that you found really annoying. And if you could talk about what the ritual was and who the player was.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of guys that had those rituals that were like so ingrained. I'd say Mike Dunham, a goaltender that I played with in New York. Man, we had a great team, but we didn't have great goaltenders. I love the guys that played with us, but man, we could add some sick teams if Mike Richter would have stuck around a little bit longer. I guess he was pretty particular and wanted to be zoned in, and he hated if anyone went near his sticks. I would always push his sticks down just to fuck with him a little bit. I wouldn't say there were that many guys with that many rituals that were crazy. I always had to have Starbucks. That was my thing. I always put my right on before my left, whether it was my shin pad or my skate or my glove. But it wasn't a ritual. It was more just a creature of habit. And I get there at the same time. I go through my pregame ritual the exact same way, but I wasn't crazy if I got out of it. It was just I'm a creature of habit. I drive the same way to the rink, but I don't go fucking nuts as some guys do. If there's a red light when they're supposed to be turning, like they have to do it at the exact same minute. Like some guys are crazy. I guess Starbucks, I always had to have my Starbucks. And in Philadelphia one year in the playoffs, our closest Starbucks was about 8 miles away, and I would take a cab to get my Starbucks every single day. That Starbucks, that venti latte every day would cost me about $45 by the time I got to the rink. So I look back in hindsight, absolute stupidity. It can go down with chalking up the 50% I gave away to my ex-wife as I did to all of those Starbucks in Philadelphia. But no one that crazy on pregame rituals, more just creatures of habit, I would say.
We'll get back to some of the online questions in a moment, but I'm just going to throw out some players that you played with. whether it's a couple of words or a fairly brief synopsis of what it was like playing with them, but not looking necessarily for you to delve deep into what it was like playing with them. But you mentioned the Rangers with Mike Dunham, so I'll throw out Mark Messier first off.
Unreal. My setter for the better part of 3 years. I mean, one of the greatest of all time. He is, honestly, I've met a lot of celebrities, whether it be in the music business, athletes, actors, actresses. He's probably the only guy that I was nervous when I met him. When I actually first met him in New York, he's like bigger than the game. One of the nicest guys, one of the greatest leaders that I've ever had the chance to play with. His approach to every practice, every game, he's so methodical in analyzing and trying to incorporate and bring everyone in for the betterment of the team. We didn't have a good team for the 3 years that I played in New York. We didn't make the playoffs, but certainly playing with the Moose was one of the highlights of my career.
Joe Sakic.
Along with Mark, just a quiet leader. Quiet leader. I used to call him TQS because when I played junior in Quebec City, he was wearing number 88 for the Quebec Nordiques back then. I used to laugh because I used to watch him play, one of my idols, but I'd watch him play, and in French they would always announce, because he'd be one of the stars, and they'd always say, avec 2 buts, 3 passes, 5 points, la troisième étoile, Joe Sakic. Now in English that means with 2 goals and 3 assists, your third star. They'd never get first star because they lost every fucking game, but he'd have 5 points. Joe Sakic. Oh yeah, -4, -4, because he'd get 5 points, but he'd be on the ice for about 9 goals against, because like I said, they were terrible. Great guy, unbelievable leader, a pleasure to play with in Colorado.
Mario Lemieux.
The most talented player, along with Alexei Kovalev, that I've ever seen. The difference is Kovy is the most underachieving 1,000-point guy that's ever played in the National Hockey League. That's how fucking good he was. Mario, 6'5", hands like a guy 5'7", strong, smart, just an unbelievable guy to be around. Was like one of the guys, and he was an owner when I played with him. So Mario, it's a very tough question. Who do you take number 1 overall if you were doing a draft of all time? Number 99 or 66? Matthew Barnaby speaking in third person here. I'd probably take number 66.
There's just 3 of the legends that you played with when we're talking about with Lemieux and Sakic and Messier, and clearly it's different whenever, for somebody like you who was a teammate of these guys, and you take somebody like me who most of the guys I've met, it's been through my radio show, but again, it's a different dynamic whenever you're either in the media or you're a fan. And I mean, Mario was a big disappointment for me whenever I met him, but I know that you're not the only one. Most of the guys that have ever played with him all have great things to say about him, especially about how he didn't treat you any different than any other teammate, regardless of what your salary was or anything. To me, he was just a total prick. I think I compare him to guys that are Hall of Famers like Brian Trottier and Joe Newdike, who just seem to be world class to everybody.
Yeah, don't ever think that anyone's going to be like Brian Trottier. There's not a nicer guy in this world. You actually have to get away from Brian Trottier because he's going to tell you so many stories. That's how good a guy he is.
And who else is just going to grab a guitar and get into playing some Johnny Cash?
Oh, yeah. Fucking horrible coach. Man, was he a fucking horrible coach. But what a fucking great guy. Love the guy. Probably the best two-way center. Sorry to cut you off, but probably the best two-way center of all time. But unbelievable guy. And yes, true to your word, it's how your interaction is with these guys when you meet them. Now, I've met Michael Jordan, biggest fucking douchebag I ever met in my life. Now, he might treat other people, and with The Last Dance and their, there's so many things that come out, but my interaction was with him and Doug Gilmour at Doug Gilmour and his Nike golf tournament back in like 1994 in Toronto. And he was a douchebag because that's he wanted to play cards with his buddies in the back rather than hang out with us. And okay, I understand it. That was my interaction with him. Might be the nicest guy in the world, but our interactions, and I always tell everyone along the way, is never judge what I'm going to say or someone else is going to say. Judge them on the interaction you have with them, and that's the only way you can ever judge. So if anyone ever tells me Darcy Lynch is a douche, they're probably right, but you're a good guy to me.
Oh, well, that's debatable. But interesting that you bring up Michael Jordan. Of course, I'm sure you're watching The Last Dance, as am I, and most sports fans across the world are. But I remember one time, I mentioned at the outset about how Brad May has done some of the Tales from the Penalty Box shows with us. And I know, as you mentioned earlier, Brad's a good friend of yours. But he mentioned one time about the Dennis Rodman connection. And Rodman's obviously playing a key role in the documentary and played a key role with the Bulls in their championships at the end of Jordan's career. But what was your experience with Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, what a fucking night. That night lasted, it felt like a year and a half. Good old Maisie. I fucking love Maisie. Yeah, it was a night in Chicago. We just played the Hawks, and we were staying the night in Chicago. It was an afternoon game, and we were going from there, staying the night, practicing in Chicago at the United Center, and then flying to San Jose the next day to practice and then play the Sharks. So after the game, it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We didn't know where to go, so we went up to Chris Chelios and we said, "Chelly, is there anywhere to go tonight? It's a Sunday. Can you point us in the right direction?" He's like, "Yeah. Let me get my family home. Let me have dinner with them, and I'll meet you at my place." So we went up the street to his bar, Chelly's, had a beer there, little food. We texted him. He says, "Hey, go meet my buddy George, who's Michael Jordan's handler, his guy that kind of sets up everything for him. You're going to meet him at this spot, and you're going to go there. You're going to have a great time. I'll meet you there. I'm running a little bit behind." So now it's about 7 o'clock, still early. We go into this place. It's a strip joint, so we walk in. It's myself and Rob Ray and Brad May and Jay McKee, and we're having an awesome time. We're having an awesome time, Frank, as they say in old school. And we walk in and we get sat, and George is there. He's like, "I'm George. Anything you need, just let me know. I'll have it." So we all sit down, and girls are dancing. We're having a beer or whatever. We're having a great time. All of a sudden, at the bar is a guy wearing Chris Chelios' jersey. And all of a sudden we get a text. We're like, "Hey, Dennis Rodman's there. He's going to come with you guys. Come meet you guys." So he's like, "Okay, he's here." So he comes over to the table, and we're drinking, whatever. I'm not going to sewer another guy at this table, but one of the 4 guys loved this girl on stage. Her name was Mimi. Now we're 1995, I believe, is the year. So we're in the height of the Bulls. Like, Dennis Rodman is the fucking man in Chicago, and we're just 4 or 5 Buffalo guys that are looking to have a beer and have some fun. But Dennis knows everything. Dennis knows everyone. So these girls were hot. We were looking, man, we were like, oh my God. One of our guys fell in love with this girl, Mimi. So he goes up and he gives her a little money, gives her a kiss, comes back, and Dennis looks at us and looks at me and Jay McKee, and he's like, "Hey, you know that guy, that stripper that he just kissed? You know that guy is a bigger crank than the guy that kissed her, right?" And it's not Brad May, I can tell you that. That's for sure. So Brad, you're okay, you're good. But it certainly is another guy out there. And he's like, no fucking way. That's a girl. That's a girl. He's like, "Dude, that guy's got a bigger dick than you do. Like, way bigger. Trust me, I'm in here all the time, and Mimi's got a big crank." So we go from there, and we leave there. We're a little drunk. We go to a bar called the Crow Bar, and 2 of the guys are dancing. It's industry night. Like I said, it's Sunday night. 2 of the guys are suspended above the stage, dancing, no shirts on, having an awesome, awesome time. I'm at the bar, just having drinks. Maybe a couple shots, but we all know when we're getting drunk. We know when it's time to leave. Very few times where we're like, okay, this went from 0 to 100 in like 10 minutes. I went from having a drink with Dennis and a few of the guys, talking to people all along the way at the bar, to literally having to be carried into a cab by my teammates. Now we're staying at the Drake Hotel, beautiful, beautiful hotel. So Dennis is like, get him home. So I'm in the back of the cab. I'm laying over top of the guys. I'm throwing up. Cab guy looks back and he's like, what's going on back there? They're like, oh, he's okay. He's a little sick. So they open the door. I start puking outside. As I'm puking, I start to shit myself. Now, I wasn't drunk. I'm telling you, I wasn't drunk. Someone slipped something in my drink. I know that for sure because we're talking almost 30 years later, and I've never, ever, ever had a feeling like this ever again. And I've been drunk a few times. Never have I been 1/100th of what I felt that night, and it lasted about 3 days. So I literally get to the hotel. They pour me out of the cab. Now I take my pants off. Now there's red carpet because it's where all the prime ministers stay, all the presidents stay when they come, all the high-ranking officials come in. They stay at the Drake Hotel, beautiful place. So I go in. I have no pants, but I need to get to my room. Don't know what time it is. I go to the front desk and I ask the lobby, the girl at the front desk, can I get a gi? She looks at me. She goes, do you have ID? And I look down. I go, I don't have fucking pants. How do you want ID? I don't have fucking pants. So the guys, I don't even remember who it was, but they're like, it is Matthew Barnaby. He got something slipped into his drink. Now, here I am. Just visualize this at the front desk. Shit dripping down my legs. No pants. Shoes on. And asking for a hotel key. So go to my room. Get in my room. Everything's good. All night. Same thing. I'm puking all night. I get to practice the next day. I slip on a puck right away, and Ted Nolan calls me over and goes, what'd you do last night? I go, was out with some of the guys. I don't know. Someone had to slip something in my drink. He's like, okay, this is what we do. Get off the ice, go lay on the training table, put an ice pack on each one of your legs. I'll cover for you. Say you got hurt, you can't practice, you'll be fine for San Jose. And that's what a great coach Teddy Nolan was. Thank you, Teddy. I love you. And then I threw up 5 hours all the way to San Jose, and it took me about 2 days to recover. But great night with the Worm. Great guy. A lot of fun. I went out with him in Vegas a couple years ago. It was nowhere near the same now that Dennis wasn't drinking.
Hey, who knows? Maybe you're going to make an appearance in The Last Dance before the segment's over in a few weeks.
Maybe. Yeah, no, Dennis is a beauty. That whole team, they were beauties.
The next segment I want to do here is we're going to wrap up in about 10 minutes or so is just to do some rapid fire with you to fire some questions at you with one answer. But before I get there, I know that a lot of the questions were sent to you directly on social media. Is there any specific question or questions that you want to address?
Just on there, no one specifically. To me, it was just like what coach I thrived under the most, and for me, it's two guys. To me, it's Teddy Nolan gave me the opportunity to play and really thrive. Let me be myself. He didn't want to, just have me going out and fighting, just being an antagonizer. He loved that I was an antagonizer and go out and get under people's skin, but he really wanted me to play, and he wanted me to play in that 13 to 14 to 15 minute range to get the most out of me. So he was just an awesome coach. And later on in my career, again, Dave Tippett is one of those guys that I just respect so much. I respect, even if guys don't like you, I've had coaches that don't like you, but the way that Dave Tippett, I thought, ran a team, treated me at the end of my career, absolutely, just were awesome guys in my opinion.
Okay, so for the rapid fire, best city on the road.
I'm going to go two, and both in Canada. Montreal, French women. What are you going to say? Best strip joints back in the day. Even though I'm not a big stripper guy, the guys love Montreal, and the Roxy. Roxy, it's renowned. Country night, Sunday nights. A couple guys have missed some flights in the NHL because of the Roxy.
Of the teams that you played for, again, I said earlier the majority, the city you rated the longest was Buffalo, but
yeah.
The best party team, is there one year team, whether it was a city you were in like 1 year in Dallas or multiple years, but is there one team that you can think of that, wow, that's the one we had the most fun on the road?
You know what, I'd say Buffalo, just because everyone always asked me my favorite team I played for. I was naive. I came into the NHL at 20 years old and solidified at 21 years old. So we didn't think too much. We were a bunch of guys that were single and young and going out. So we went out a lot. We recovered. And a funny story, Teddy Nolan, pulled myself in one day and Michael Pekka and Jason Daw, because he was getting calls from bars at like 4 a.m. No bars should be open till 4 a.m, by the way. That's just for everyone out there. Nothing good happens at 4 a.m, and we didn't learn that. But Teddy Nolan, I remember bringing Jason Daw into the room and going, Dawsy, sometimes you go out, you're hanging out with Barney and Pex, and you're going out. Sometimes you come and work, sometimes you don't. You really gotta slow it down. You really, if you want to be an NHL player, you're going to Rochester. Mike Pekka gets called in. He's like, Pex, you're a great player. You and Barney are going out all the time. Your roommates on the road. You got to slow it down. I love you to have a good time, but you're such a good player. And, you work hard, but on days I can tell that you go out, you got to slow it down a little bit. We need a little bit more from you. And he calls me and he goes, I know you're the fucking ringleader. I know you're going out all the time. And I can't explain it. The nights you go out, you actually work fucking harder than the days that you don't go out. But he goes, if you want to have a long career, I want you to have fun. I want you to have a great time. Experience it all. But you got to slow it down. You can't be going out till 4 a.m. Find a girlfriend and settle down. So I got married. Teddy owed me some money.
The hockey fans love hearing the dirt on players or hearing whenever they don't get the cliched answer or hearing that everybody is great. So who is the dumbest player that you ever played with?
Oh, by far. There's two. I always say the same guy. I always go to Christoph Olawa. That, on an SAT test he'd get 0 because he couldn't spell his name. And you get, I think, 4% or 4 marks right for spelling your name right. But Christoph Olawa, certainly not ever going to be a brain surgeon. That's coming from me. I did the Wonderlic this week, by the way. NFL guys, Vince Young, that got 6 on your Wonderlic. I only have my grade 11, and I got 25 in a drive-thru at Starbucks the other day with kids yelling in the background. So Christoph Olawa, I think, would be along those lines of a Vince Young, probably scoring 6 on the Wonderlic if he was ever tested. And Michael Grosek. I love him. Great player. Great teammate. Great line mate. Love playing with him, but Michael Grosek, and not the smartest player I ever played with.
Well, what former teammate would you least like to be quarantined with?
Oh, fuck. That's a good one. That is a really good one. Well, Bobby Holik would just tell me that he's smarter than me all day long. If we were going back 3 years ago, it would be Mike Pekka, because for about 10 years we fucking hated each other. We just didn't like each other for a variety of different reasons. Probably Big E. Big E can get a little stinky in that room and kind of tries to take control of the room. But I always had more games played than the Big E. But back in the day when we were roommates, he had chew. I don't like being roomies with anyone that chews. And fuck, he'd have his spittoons, his chew everywhere. It would just drive me nuts. So I'm kind of a neat freak. So probably the Big E. If I was in quarantine, I couldn't get out. Great roommate, great guy. But if I couldn't get out of the house and he was here all the time, fuck, that would drive me nuts.
Well, the Big E now, going back to Philadelphia as an ambassador for the team.
Yeah.
Would Philadelphia be the city you think that hated you the most?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Big E, going back, they obviously had their time away where they hate each other. But like I said, I hated him so much when he played for Philly. I played for Buffalo. We had so many great battles, but he was easy to get under the skin of. He just started talking about his family and them controlling him. He was always good for 1 or 2 minor penalties when we'd roll in there. But Philadelphia, yeah, those fans absolutely hated me, between the death threats that you'd get on your phone when we didn't have cell phones when I broke into the league, to walking into the arena in playoffs, getting doused with beer, but getting those death threats. I never took them I always took them at face value or not at face value, just kind of laughing that I didn't think anyone would take it to that extreme. But certainly Philadelphia fans are fucking absolutely insane. Now that I'm on the outside looking in, I love it. I would have loved to play for Philadelphia. The passion that they bring, it's like Bills Mafia in football. They are the epitome of what you want fans if you're playing for that team.
I got one last question for you before we wrap it up, but I want to give the floor to you for a moment first. Yep. Just anything that you want to throw out there that we haven't covered. And also, I know that you're the gambler, I'm not. Made reference to it earlier, but I know that you've. I see you playing a lot with Coolbet Canada, so you want to mention these tournaments that you're playing with them?
Yeah, Coolbet's been awesome. I do gamble a lot, so my website will be being launched tomorrow. MatthewBarnaby36.com. It's one thing since I've left SiriusXM. I'm going to be doing my podcast, Unfiltered with Matthew Barnaby, twice weekly. To be able to do these things, have an opinionated view on everything hockey, everything in general, life in general, being in quarantine, all of these things. I just like being unfiltered, opinionated, but I do gamble a lot. I like gambling on hockey and football. My New York Jets, I know they suck, so I'm usually betting against them on those days, but Coolbet for any gamblers out there is an awesome spot. Hockey helps the homeless, an incredible initiative. What they're doing, I'm fortunate to be able to partner and associate myself with a lot of charities out there, whether it be Hockey Helps the Homeless in these tough times. Alzheimer's is near and dear to my heart. My grandmother passed away with the disease. I have a former coach in Vince Millette, I'm sure that is listening today, a great hockey mind and great hockey guy that is suffering with the disease. There's just so many avenues that I've been able to be associated with, and so many great people out there that I'm very lucky to be able to raise a lot of funds and money. And this is one, like I said, Alzheimer's certainly is one that I get to be a big part of. So I thank them. I thank Troy St. Louis, who's a teammate of mine that really got this up and going. A lot of this stuff that we see and with my website that has helped me. Again, if anyone needs IT out there, Matthew Barnaby is not him. We barely got this to go live on YouTube, but if it wasn't for Troy St. Louis getting me through this, certainly I would not be here right now. So thank you to all of you. I'll be thanking them weekly. Hope everyone listens to the podcast coming up. Tune into the website, but it's been a great time and many more of these to come as well.
Yeah, and it's a work in progress. Anyone who is having any challenges submitting questions. This is a trial run here, and that's one thing that we haven't been able to monitor while we've been in real time, but it's been a lot of fun. All of us that have been involved in the live Tales from the Penalty Box shows have really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, and it's great having some drinks and lots of laughs. We're hoping to get back on the road with it. We have one planned with May Day and Matt in August. If things settle down by that point, we'll be back out for that one, but hoping to resume things in the fall at the latest. But hey, yeah, these in the meantime, when we're stuck in our homes, these are a lot of fun. But one question I'll pose to you, Matt, before we sign off, that I know has came up in the live shows, but you're known as a trash talker. You're the quintessential trash talker in a way because you were doing it before it. You kind of made an art of it, and there was a lot of players, the Pat Colettas and Sean Avery's and Steve Otts that came afterwards that were known for it. But early 90s, that was kind of your thing, and you were kind of one of the first players to really bring that. But what is probably the worst thing that you ever said to somebody on the ice that I'm sure there's a lot of things you regret now? You do a lot of functions with a lot of former players, and you've got to know them. Well, guys that used to be enemies now you're friends with. But is there anybody specific that there was an incident that you would really have a hard time looking that person in the eye even today?
Yeah, this is a hard one, and I'll use a couple of my favorite lines because I get asked that a lot. Like, did you ever cross the line? Fuck yeah, every day. Every day I went on the ice, I crossed the line. That was I wanted to say things that were going to get people's attention and get them pissed off at me and have them running around after me and worried about me rather than Pat LaFontaine or Alex McGillney or Mario Lemieux, Mark Messier, Joe Sakic. I wanted them focused on me rather than them and taking penalties on me and letting our power play so those guys, the really talented guys, can go out and score. To me, it was all about winning. My trash talking was about winning. It was course, I love being in the middle of it. I love the attention. I'd be lying if I didn't love the attention from the media or the fans or them coming after me. Being the focal point, that's who I am. I'm going to stay true to myself. I'm not going to say things, but I loved it. I love being the guy that was hated. Did I cross the line? Yeah, I crossed the line every time. The only one I really apologize for, I would say, would be Dan Kordick. Dan Kordick, when he was playing at Hershey my first year, I made reference to his brother and me going to put him in the same spot that his brother was. Now, that's so completely offside for anyone that doesn't know there. His brother had passed away the year before, 18 months before. So it was completely over the top. It was completely wrong. I was wrong. And I sent down word that I apologized. And, I understand. He said he accepted. I'm glad. Certainly in a day and age today with social media, it would have blown up and I would have been absolutely just torn a strip out of it. And I deserved it. I was wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong. I've had so many, I think, great one-lines over the years. Some of my best have been playing against a guy and knowing a guy on the team has banged his wife and playing on the same team, and I'll make reference to that on the ice. Kenny Johnson is one of my favorites out there. Played for the Islanders, and anyone that remembers Kenny Johnson, really good defenseman, first-round pick, but had really bad acne, and he came by our bench, and I don't even know why I went after him because he was such a nice guy. But I was like, Kenny, in North America, we eat the pizza. We don't sleep in it. And he kind of looked at me, and all of his teammates started laughing, and he probably didn't even understand the reference, but his teammates loved it, laughed, were dying, because obviously he had the crater face at the time. And Jason Blake, I always love this one too. You always get the tough guys that aren't good at skating, and they challenge you, or a guy from the minors that, asks you to fight, and you're like, hey, I don't even know your name. Turn around, almost like Austin Matthews this year, using a Sabre out of Ottawa, who's a good friend of mine and just a great guy. But we used to use that line all the time. But, I think, for young guys that were wanting to fight you, if you can skate all the way there and back without falling over, I'll fight you. But I still haven't seen it happen. So, yeah, along those lines, there's so many great lines that you use to get people to come after you, to slash you, to punch you in the face. And Kenny Johnson was my favorite line that I ever used.
Well, I think that's a great time to sign off. Great job tonight, Barney. You bring it as normal, and you're very honest and candid, and that's what goes over so well with our live shows. And like I said earlier, this is a trial run here, a work in progress, what we're doing online. But it was your idea. Full credit to you on that, and a lot of fun with it tonight. One thing I have learned, though, is I don't have anybody delivering drinks whenever we do it online. So I am doing it from home, so I'll have to enlist my 9 or 7-year-old to be my mentor.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say you can only get so drunk when you only have one to start with, and Proby would be proud. I love the Probert jersey. You couldn't turn it around, but it's funny. You have your Senator jersey. You got your Red Wings, 2 worst teams in the National Hockey League this year.
Yeah, it looks
you
like
really
the
went on a
draft
limb
here.
there, right? The best thing we always say. The best thing we always say about these shows, and stay true to form, is no show is ever the same, because there's so many different stories from different teams, and Ivan Halinka as a coach, and not being able to speak English behind the bench, having him as a coach in the National Hockey League, playing with so many different guys. No show is ever the same. So as we go through these, as we do more of these, we'll get questions from different teams. We'll go different avenues on which ways to approach it. So for our first one, thank you. Again, thank you for everyone for listening. This will, I'm sure, be archived on YouTube. I will be putting it on my website, on MatthewBarnaby36.com, where I will be launching my podcast again this week. Darcy, thank you very much. Everyone out there that tuned in to YouTube today, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the candid answers, and hopefully everyone was above 18. Time for you to have some drinks. I've been stuck on water for 2 months. Ever since that fucking stupid, dumb bouncer from Nashville attacked me, I've been on water for some damn reason. But maybe we'll have a charity fight, me against that bouncer, You know, I'm more and willing and able anytime he wants to make his way, but never believe what you read online unless it's coming right from the horse's mouth. So thank you to everyone. Hope you had a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, folks. Stay the fuck home.